Sarah. Sarah came over. She didn't make anything. She just came over to
All right, everybody, how y'all doing? And welcome to the Focus on Greatness podcast. I know y'all trying to figure out what the straw is doing on my face, but as I stated on my announcement to be able to let everybody know, today we are doing coffee shop talk. And so we are down at the Couple Joe's coffee shop. And so this is my coffee for the day. Ordered my Uncle Sam, so he'll be having his in a minute as we're having this discussion. But we are in the place to be. The address is actually also on the link, so you'll be able to see it. So if you want to come down and be a part of this while we're doing this type of conversation, you can come down. Now, these past couple podcasts, we've been having some conversation dealing with the learning learn the lesson. And so in this conversation, we have been learning different things and talking about different things. So when I thought about this context of what I was going to be dealing with, I thought about this great man sitting next to me, because not only is he my uncle, which that is automatic, why he's sitting in this seat, but he's also a teacher. I would consider him probably a very wise teacher, not only in the field that he is, but it's just a teacher also in life. And so I'm going to allow him to be able to introduce himself and talk to y'all, and then we will dive right into this beautiful conversation that we're going to have.
No problem. Good evening. As you said, my name is Central Hicks, and I'm currently a teacher at Shoemaker High School. I've been teaching there since 1998, and the class that I teach currently is called AVID. It stands for Advancement via Individual Determination, and the purpose or the overall mission of AVID is to take students who are historically in the middle or underserved and put them in a position of greatness. And by saying that, what I mean by giving them the tools necessary to be successful. So we take students who are, as I said, underserved, and we place them in upper level classes, dual credit, advanced, AP, etc. But what we do in the AVID elective class is actually give them the tools necessary to be successful in those classes. So therefore, they're not just swimming in the class, because there's a different way of reading in an AP class than it is in a regular English class. So we want to give them the support necessary to be successful. And we take our students at the high school level all the way through the senior level and give them the assistance they need to know the unwritten curriculum that's located in colleges, so they can not just go to college, because a lot of kids go to college, but we want them to be successful and to graduate. So that's currently my vocation, if you will, and I truly enjoy it immensely. I also work for AVID, and as I said, and I'm an AVID staff developer, so I get the honor and the opportunity to go around the country, and I've been blessed to go around the world teaching teachers and giving them ideas and tips and strategies to be successful. And I'm blessed to be at work every day and work with my wife, and she's a school counselor. And my youngest daughter actually is a Shoemaker senior, and all of our children will have been Shoemaker graduates before it's all over. So I guess that pretty much sums up what I do. In addition, I also am a children's church minister, and I've been doing that since 1991, quite a while. I've seen, a lot, so guess that's enough about who I am and what I do.
Yes. So as y'all all see, yes, we have this in a very wide angle today, because we wanted to make sure that we had enough space, not only to be able to have this conversation, but to be able to capture the beautiful background that we have the blessing to be able to stand in front of. And so I want to be able to say thank you for Mr. Taylor for allowing us to be able to utilize this space. That is the owner of Couple Joe's Coffee Shop. And so as always, if you are in the clean Harker Heights, Coppers Cove, Temple, Nolanville area, make sure you get your way down here. Now, I'm personally not a coffee drinker, but I still love to come here and get me some coffee. And so I want you to be able to come down. That was my commercial for the day, and now we're going to dive into this beautiful conversation. Now, we have been talking in these podcasts for about, again, a couple weeks now, and one of the things, again, the main focus that we've been dealing with is learn the lesson. I used the scenario, or the typical scenario of learning the lesson of a classroom. Now, in studying this, it took me back very badly because I had to be able to realize that there were certain things, even in my own personal life, in reference to how I was learning lessons was the wrong way. It might not been the accurate way in those areas, but it was the wrong way, the wrong scenarios. And so now what I've come to recognize in this, diving into this conversation and throughout this podcast, what I've come to understand and recognize is that there are specific ways that God has ordained us to be able to learn lessons. And so what I want to do is I want to really tap into the teacher style of who you are, and really be able to get an understanding of how the dynamics of how a teacher comes in when they're preparing a lesson, or when they might be going over a new school year, of how they want to be able to get their class ready to be able to make sure that they're understanding what they're teaching, to be able to make sure that they're taking something away. I know as a teacher there's a certain mindset that you have to have, because one, you don't know what type of student you're dealing with until they walk in the room. So I know that there's a certain mentality that the teacher has. And so I want to kind of pull on that for a minute, and then we'll just kind of see how this conversation goes.
Yeah, excellent, no problem. So since it's the beginning of the school year, what you think about as a teacher when you beginning is, the thought process is, it's kind of cliche, but it's begin with the end in mind. Where do I want them to end up?
Yeah.
So that way I know where I'm going to begin.
Wow.
So, and if I begin with the end in mind, I go, okay, if I structure my entire lesson about concerning where I want them to go, then it's a whole lot easier for me to provide them the pathway to get there.
Gotcha.
Because I'm thinking about, regardless of what student comes in, what do I need to teach them, and in what ways do I need to teach them to make sure they get it? And while I'm doing that, I'm also thinking, what if she doesn't get it? What if he doesn't understand it? What do I do then? How do I reteach that? How do I make sure that I provide various examples and different types of strategies to engage that student for them to fully understand what it is that I want them to get, so we can move on to that next step? And also, a very important part that many people forget is, I have to be able to explain to my students why.
Yeah.
Why is this important? Why do I need to do this?
Yeah.
And why are we doing what we're doing today? Where is this going to lead me?
Yeah.
And once you understand, once the student is able to understand, well, first of all, once I as a teacher understand why I'm doing what I'm doing, then I can explain that to my students, and it becomes a whole lot easier. And throughout, it's a matter of continuing to give them those little crumbs, those little breadsticks of, okay, here it is, we break you off a piece, here you go. This is why we're doing this. Oh, okay, I understand. And then you show them the connections. This is connected to either what we have done or what we're going to do. I often talk to my students who say, what we're doing right now may not seem like a big thing, but you're going to need this when you get to college. And I'm telling you this based on my experience and what I know. And that helps them to stay with me and understand, okay, I may not get it all right now, but I will get it eventually. And then we, again, teach and reteach. So in a teacher's mindset, we really are focused on where you want to go, but you start there in the beginning and say, okay, where am I? Another key point to that is I need to be able to know who my students are. I may not know each individual student, but what is the population that I'm working with? And do I have a larger at risk population? So that way, and if so, then what's the problem there as it relates to what are their needs that need to be met? How do I need to focus on this student or these students as opposed to others? And I always think about that when I teach freshmen, because every year, I don't care what year it is, I don't care what happens, every year those freshmen are going to come in and they're going to be 14 years old. And they're going to behave like they're 14 years old. So I need to understand the needs of a 14-year-old. And often I need to put myself in the thought process of, remember when you were 14 and you and Gary and Reggie used to run around and do stupid stuff and used to laugh for no reason at all? So when I'm in the classroom, I have to remember that. So that way, I don't freak out, because every year they're 14, but every year I'm older. So what I used to be able to, stomach really easily when I was 35, now when I'm knocking on 50, I'm like, what is wrong with them? Nothing. They're 14, and that's how they're going to behave. So it's that, and tailoring what I'm doing to that understanding of where they are.
Got you. No, that is good. Now, one of the things that we've been discussing, or the base of what we've been discussing, is out of Mark chapter 8, and the conversation is really dealing with Jesus dealing and talking to his disciples at this point. And as he's talking to his disciples, he's telling them or teaching them, I need you to watch out for the Pharisees. And he's going through this conversation, and he ends off stating to them, basically, do you not understand? Don't you have an understanding?
I heard that. Yes, sir.
But while I'm listening to you talk about the aspect of when a teacher is teaching, they're like you said, thinking about the end in mind. We understand that what he was teaching them at this point was not for now.
Right.
It was for later.
Yeah.
So everything that he's teaching them is for later. So as a teacher, he's instructing them on information and things that they would need to know for the end game that what he's trying to do and what he's trying to accomplish. And so then I understood, just from taking this conversation, I'm trying to listen very intently, is not only understanding that you as a teacher are teaching with the end in mind, but you're also teaching at the level of the people. So you're not teaching as a 20-year-old to a 14-year-old.
Right.
You're making sure that your understanding of what you're giving unto them is at the level that they can be able to receive it. And so with that understanding, for me, helps me to understand also more in line of why Jesus was teaching them the way, and his frustration at the end was like, wait a minute, not only am I teaching you something that you should be understanding is not for now, but then I'm teaching you at the level that you're at. So I don't understand why you don't understand. It's frustrating me why you don't understand this. And so I think for anybody that's watching, the same piece is a part of this life. As Jesus being our teacher, as the Holy Spirit now is being our teacher, he's giving unto us and teaching us things not for our now, but he's giving us things for our future. But on top of that, this is what I believe, I love this, is he's making sure that he's giving them to you at your level of understanding. He's not giving you information, things that are higher above you, because he understands you will not take it, you will not be able to absorb it, nor will you be able to live with it. So this is what I'm loving. I could go so far with that, but I'm not going to do this as an interview. And so with this, because the wonderful thing about, I love teachers. Because the wonderful thing about any teacher is for a teacher to be a great teacher, it had to be a great student. So as a student, because you're a very excellent student, and so as a student, the question that I have is, what are things, not only when you were in high school, because you've been in high school, you've been in college, and so you've kind of had a life of school. A life of school. In those areas in your life, what are some of the things in reference to dynamics, the difference of the dynamics that you saw in reference to your focus from in high school to where your focus was in college, and how that helped you to be able to understand what you were learning? That's not too deep.
It's getting deep on that. I gotta take a break on that one. All right, so in high school, it was interesting because I knew that it was a step after high school is going to be college. But while I was in high school, I said, okay, what do I need to do to get by? What do I need to do to make it? So I was making B's and C's, and I probably could have made A's and B's, but again, when you talked about my focus wasn't, I want to be an A student. My focus was, I'm in school, let me pass the class. And with that, I was fine with that. Not realizing the one part of it, not realizing the financial possibilities had I been a straight A student, scholarships, etc., that I could have gotten, but that wasn't again my focus. And I had a group of people around me, and we were trying to go to school, we were playing ball, we were enjoying life, and saying, hey, we're gonna make it out of here, and we're gonna continue moving on. So it really wasn't and it wasn't to say that my mom didn't say, okay, you better go to school and do your work and do your best. Yeah, cool. But at that time, for me, my best was, hey, I got a B, I got a C, I'm good. Why are we tripping on this? Is anybody mad? No, let's just keep this ball rolling. So really, that was my thought process. Upon leaving high school and going into college, I thought pretty much the same thing. It kind of ramped up maybe a little bit because my first semester of college, I said, okay, let me kind of buckle down and get after this. Because you're in college now. It's big boy time, trying to handle your business. So my first semester in college, I had a 3.2 GPA. I was living live. I was like, yo, I got this. I'm so excited about this. And I was so excited that I decided it would be a great idea for me to party more than I had been. And yo, you got it because your GPA is going to carry over. Why are you stressing? It carried over to a 2.3. That's what ended up happening. I jumped from a 3.2 to a 2.3. They sent me a letter and said, sir, we're sorry, but if you don't get this together, you're going to be out of here. And that caused me, again, to really lock in and focus differently. It was at that moment that I looked at it and I realized I don't want to go back to Miami with a story that so many people have. That they tripping out there and they, crazy. And it's really my fault.
Right.
And so I took my grades, I highlighted all my grades that I had that were bad, and I put them on my mirror. And it was at that point I said, okay, everyone could see this walking in my room, but so could I.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm never doing that again, because that's not why I'm here. I'm here to graduate. So lock in, brother. Let's go. Let's get it.
Right.
So from that point on, my grades were 2.9, 2.8, 3.0, and it just kept moving. Now my bottom line GPA didn't move as fast, but that was my overall GPA. But at each semester, so the focus was a lot different. And again, like you talked about the dynamics. The people I was around, it was a different set of people because they were aspiring toward greatness academically. Because we were a little bit more mature in understanding what this next step in life was and what it was going to do for us. So it caused you to look at yourself differently. And you thought, hey, I don't want to be the odd person out. I don't want to be the quote unquote failure in my grouping or what have you. So I want to make sure I'm getting this thing. So let me go. So that was my thought process there. And in college, well, I'm saying not college, but after leaving college, I went back again and got my master's degree. And oddly enough, I'm in school right now. I'm working on my principal certification, which is something I never thought I would do.
I've been waiting for that, just for
He really has. But now that I'm doing this part of it, even when I went to college to get my master's degree, it was again a different focus because I had to understand, why am I doing this? Because now it's completely on me. So if you're gonna do this, then do it with everything you have in you, and know your why. What's your reasoning behind it, and that caused me to really excel where I was an honor graduate and Phi Beta Kappa and that kind of thing. And I was like, I never realized that I could do this. And my wife was like, you could have been an A student your whole life. If you're doing this now, what was that? And I was like, well, it really wasn't as big of a deal to me at that time. But as time has progressed, it definitely has become that. So those are the things that I think about as it relates to focus and just looking at it from the standpoint of how did it change. And then of course with growth and maturity and perspective, I mean, life gives you perspective. And as you gain perspective, you begin to understand what was okay before will never be okay again. Simply because you understand things from a different viewpoint now. So I hope that answers and helps out what you said.
Because I think for the student aspect, because again we're all students, and as not only as our pastor Bishop Open would say, but even as my uncle would say, we're always learning. Forever learning. We're forever learning. And so because of that aspect, I think the greatness of it is to be able to recognize, and even just listening to your story, we can see that not only were you learning in school, and this is one of the things I say, I don't know if I've said it through the podcast, but this is something that I personally understand and I live by, is that in school, I'm learning twice. I'm learning in the classroom and I'm learning in the hallway. And so even as you were talking, I can see and I can hear that even though you were learning from the lessons that you were going through and the experiences that you had, you were also learning from the environment that you were in. And the environment that you were in were saying, either I want this life or I don't want this life. Right. And you advanced and made the adjustments that are needed. And I think that's something that we all have to be able to make sure that we're looking at, is in our advancement and in our learning of these lessons and being able to develop and grow in the way that God ordained us to do. Sometimes our growth, or the thing that hinders our growth, is not because you can't learn, or it's not because you cannot do it or achieve it. Sometimes it's the environment that you're around that is hindering the way that you look at growth. And that's what I heard. When your environment changed, your look at growth or your perspective at growth changed. So your focus changed on everything else that you were doing. So as we dive a little bit deeper,
Let's go.
because now we've dealt with you as being a teacher, we've dealt with you as being a student, which I consider all of us are lifelong students. But now the piece is in reference to just in life, and I have some, and I know you will share some with us today, but the aspect of what are some of the personal lessons that you could say that you have learned in life. Now, the reason why I ask this is because I believe, as any great student is, they are always a great teacher. Now, I know that you are a teacher, but any great student is a great teacher. They're able to teach what they have been taught, or the lessons or the experiences that they have had in life. So what lesson have you learned that not only that I know you can be able to teach us, but I know you already taught the Hicks home. Now, just for the sake, I'm going to say this, and this has been a life conversation that I've always had since I was a child. And I'm saying this, and he's here to agree with this. I've always wanted to change my last name to Hicks because it's something about the last name Hicks that is anointed. I promise you it is. I just want to throw that in very quickly. But what is a lesson that you can be able to teach us that you have learned, and that I would say in your lifetime?
One of the things that I talk to my students a lot about, it happened when I was in college, and I guess it's a lesson of sorts, but it's also a motto, and I always tell them, especially as situations come up, and I talk to them about, there were times when I was in school where I was told, all right, you're not going to be able to graduate because you don't have the money. And I knew my mom didn't have the money. I know where it was coming from. So I went to Dillard University in New Orleans, and in the middle of our plaza, there's this big flagpole. And there was seats around the flagpole. And I would go to the flagpole and I would just pray. And I'm like, all right, God, look. And I really wasn't, locked in with the Lord. But I was like, bruh, I know you there. So I need some help right now.
Exactly. Yes, sir.
I said, Lord, I know you sent me here, so I just need your help to get up out of here, to walk this through. And that, they're going to have to put me out. I'm not going to stop till they put me out. And what I came up with, or what I thought, or what the Lord dropped in my head was, I ain't gonna let nothing with no hands beat me. Wow. And that sustained me all the way through. Because situations come, but I was like, it's a situation. It don't have no hands. Yeah. And I fought a lot. I've had a lot of fights in my life. I've been hit, I've lost, and I've won. So I know what a fight is. Yeah. And I said, you know what? If it don't have no hands, it's not gonna beat me. So I have to be able to persevere through it and understand that this is going to help to make me better, and not cower down from it, but understand that this is a test. This is a test, and continue to fight through it. And that's one of the bigger things, the bigger tests, the bigger lessons I believe that I've learned and garnered throughout my life. That said, okay, you know what, as situations come, look, we're going to have to get after it and keep it going. And I think in keeping with that, it's been, if your name is on it, it has to be your best. And as I became a better, I say stronger in my faith, and understand Christ, I'm like, okay, you representing the Lord. Yeah. So if your name is on it, His name is on it. So there's no choice but to do your best at it. Yeah. Now, if people like it or don't like it, they receive it or they whatever, regardless, I should be able to walk away knowing I gave my all to that particular situation. And understand that everyone isn't going to clap and sing for you just because you walked in the door. Right. But the Lord is like, bro, good looking out, good job. We did that. Yes, and I can walk away saying, all right, thank you, sir, I appreciate that, and moving on with my life. And that's a big thing also, that I don't want to misrepresent the Lord in what I do. And that is having a spirit of excellence in everything, and making sure that I follow through, and I'm a man of my word and of integrity. And those are some of the things that, again, as you were talking about what I've taught to my children and things that I teach to my students overall, is make sure that you're able to do those things. And when it's time for you to learn. Just sit down, shut up, and listen. Because I'm always of the thought process, again, as you said, I can learn anything from anyone, and I enjoy the learning process. Just as I walked in and your son was saying, I was like, hey, how was school day? What you learned? And he was telling me about matter, and I learned this and that, and I was like, cool, and I learned some things from him. And I'm like, cool, I don't mind listening to people talk, because I feel like in every situation there's something that I can learn. I'm not always the dispenser of all knowledge and wisdom, and look, let me sit down and just listen to my students talk and find out what they have to give, so that way that can enrich my understanding of life. Because again, they're coming from a different perspective, and it would do me well to understand their perspective, because by understanding their perspective, I can give them information at their level to help them. So I don't ever try to think of myself as bigger or I'm all that, if you will. But I'm always able to come under and be submitted, even as it relates to my students, because there are things that they know that I don't know. So I have to be okay with going, hey, I need you guys to show me how to do this, and I need to be able to understand, and I want to be willing to do that, and I want them to know I'm excited about the fact that you know something. Little point on the side, I teach my students how to tie ties on a regular basis. That's something I do for my students, particularly my all-male class. One of the greatest experiences I had was I taught this young man how to tie a tie in the 9th grade. In the 12th grade, he was tying my bow tie for me because I didn't know how to do it yet. Wow. And he was like, Coach Hicks, I'll show you how to do it. And he came and tied it. Dude, I was in tears. Wow. I was like, this has to be the most amazing thing, because you took the lesson that I gave you, learned it, added to it, and now you're bringing it back going, hey, let me show you what I've done with this.
Wow. Now that's good.
And I'm just enjoying the fact that he's doing it. I'm like, dude, somebody take a picture of this. I said, because I have to remember this for the rest of my life, because this is one of the most, and you're blessed by it. And I believe that the Lord is blessed when we go through what we go through, and he shows us, as you were saying, we learn those lessons, and we're able to put those lessons into practice and say, hey, God, I got it. Just like in a classroom, the teacher is so excited when the students do well on the test. Even though the teacher made the test, they made the test knowing that there's a possibility for you to fail. But if you've applied the information that they've given you, and not just you've taken the information, because we're talking about note taking, and class lecture, you've taken the notes, but after you've taken the notes, you go back and review the notes and say, okay, now I have to make connections to these notes. What do they mean to me, and how can I remember this information? So when the test comes, I'm like, oh, I remember that, and I'm able to get the right answers on the test. Now the teacher's excited, and that gives the teacher that much more energy and oomph to continue going on, because I'm sitting back as a teacher going, they got it, they understand, and I'm smiling, giving my kids passing grades, because as a teacher it hurts when you see your students not being successful, because there's a certain understanding and calling to being a teacher, and as a teacher you know you're not going to be a millionaire, you're going to be a thousandaire, a few thousand, it's not going to be all that. So even as I talked to my students at the beginning of the year this year, I said, you have to really think, why does a teacher become a teacher? What's in it for them? And very often the in it for them of the teacher is to see someone else be successful also, to be able to have a part to play in someone else's success, knowing that when you go get yours and do yours, it's not going to be, you're not going to come back to me and say, hey, here's $1 million, but seeing you become a viable, vibrant, excited part of society, and being able to give back to your community and doing well as a teacher, oh, that fills you up. So you get juiced off of that. You're excited about that. And seeing them take those strides and grow from one area, seeing a student grow from a freshman to a senior, and seeing that development happen. Man, that's wonderful. I could talk about this all day, so I'm gonna shut it down. I'll be quiet for a minute.
But we are learning some very valuable keys, and I hope that y'all are picking this up, because one of the things, if y'all not learning, I'm grabbing a whole lot from this conversation, because what I'm recognizing and understanding is that not only as a teacher, the beautiful part, and I was listening to even the ending piece when you were dealing with in reference to really what I would consider as the reward of being a teacher. The reward of being a teacher is not the monthly payments that you get. The reward of being a teacher is being able to see the ones that you have taught to develop to be something that you hope that they would be, that you can see them to be able to be. And so that's the beauty of this. And so when we look at this context, we see and understand that even in this conversation, that what is the reward of God? The reward of God is seeing you actually living out what he's teaching you to be, living out actually and becoming the very thing that he ordained you to be. One of the things I love about this man that I'm standing next to is because, not only because he's my uncle, that's, I'm a little biased, but the reality is that I'm able to watch a man walk day by day and being the type of man that he is, that he's ever developing and learning. I'm literally, this is the funny part about this is because he's been in children's church so long, not only has he been able to be my children's church leader as a child, but now he has been able to be my children's church leader, and the same love that I've seen when I was a child, the same type of compassion that I seen when I was a child, the same instructions, the same guidance, the same type of motivation, the same push to be a better you, I see him still giving in students and in my children at this level. But the greatest piece about it is I see the fruit of what he's produced, not only in us as his family, but there are students that you can call that has been throughout Shoemaker that can be able to say this is the evidence of what God has put inside of him. So the question that I ask myself and that I want you to ask yourself is, what have I produced from the people that have taught me? What have I developed to become? What type of reward am I giving them as the ones that took out the time to spend time to say, why don't you, let's do this better? Or why don't you just push this to be a little bit? Why don't you study a little bit? Why don't you take the time to, why don't you move away from them a little bit and get into what I actually see you're really doing, and you can become better in this craft. And that's what I've seen over the years, that you've been able to show men, that young boys that didn't have a father figure, people that did have father figures, children, with girls, boys, it did not matter. You were able to not only see something in them, but to be able to push them to become something great. And we have recognized that as a teacher, what a true, authentic teacher produces is not just learned students. It's not just students with a bunch of information, but they produce something that is greater than what we can ever recognize and imagine. Because it's not just from 1 to 12. Right. It's literally a lifelong thing, that what he has produced and what God is always teaching us to be able to produce and to be better is for the result of something greater. It's something bigger and something greater. So what I'm going to ask at this point is if you can just share one more thing with these beautiful people over here before we wrap this up, in reference to the importance of learning the lessons.
One of the things that you have to understand about life is that it's a series of lessons. And one of the things that we've heard and we've been taught in church on a regular basis is, if you don't learn the lesson, you're going to have to redo it. Just like if you go to school, there's always summer school because you didn't learn it when you were supposed to. And I think one of the things that is missed very often is, well, I almost learned it, or I kind of learned it. I know it just a little bit. That's okay. They have a really cool commercial on it. Okay is not okay. And you have to be able to not just learn that lesson, but be able to apply it. Because that's that higher level thinking. Just the first is just the foundation. Do I know it? Do I understand it? Yes. But now that I know it, when I know the information that's in the Bible, I know what the word says. Now, the higher level thinking, the highest level is the application phase. Can I apply what I know in the situation when it comes? And when that situation comes and I pass the test, and ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you, you feel so good about yourself. And the coolest thing about it is generally, you don't have to have that lesson anymore. Because once you pass Spanish 1, you don't go back to Spanish 1 again. You can move on to Spanish 2. But that does mean that there's going to be more lessons. There are going to be more things that happen. But because you've learned it here, now it's going to be easier to move through the next one and the next one and the next one. Because it doesn't stop. The devil says, hey, guess what? You think you got that? Let's see what you're really about. I got something else. Plus. But because you've done it once, you're able to say, okay, I got it. Now watch me do this. And Lord, help me, because I'm about to work this thing. Yeah. And now you're applying it. And the more you've applied it, the easier it becomes to apply it again and again and again. And then it becomes a lifestyle. And once you've acquired the lesson, it becomes a lifestyle. It's no longer a lesson that you're learning. It's a lesson that you're living. And you're living it, and other people are starting to see it and go, okay, what are you doing differently than I am? And how can I figure out how to do what you're doing? And the process of that simply comes with you getting it and then saying, now I want to apply it. Now I want to make sure I learn it because I'm going to go back and revisit it. Now I want to live it. And as you begin to live that lesson, that's truly allowing the Spirit of the Lord to live within you and through you. And that allows men to see and to be drawn to you, which is our primary purpose. And people come and go, well, what do you have that I don't have? And then that opens up the door for opportunity for witnessing and speaking to them.
Yes, yes. This man is a teacher, preacher. He is all of those things in one.
But thank you, amen.
But I am grateful again. Thank you for
You're
coming
welcome,
on.
man. My
This is
pleasure.
my beautiful uncle. So you can't steal him. You can't keep him. Now it's blackmail because I got him forever.
Yeah, true.
But I'm so grateful that you came on.
Thank
And you have taught not only us, but you literally have taught me something on this time. And so we say thank you. Thank you for being a part of Focus on Greatness podcast and being a part of this conversation. Every first and third Monday at 6:30 p.m. I will be right here with you. And so I'll see you next month right here on Focus on Greatness podcast. And I love every single one of y'all. Thank y'all, Facebook,
Thank you.
Live, and all those that are listening.
God bless you,
Talk to y'all
man.
later.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Oh man, thank you, bro. Appreciate it, man. That's a blessing.